Welcome to the Ali Maz Show, where we focus on human being and spiritual living with a deep inclination for the divine. Together, we delve into the seen and the unseen. We explore what it means to be well and whole from the inside out. Over the last 17 years, I have been focused on how movement, breath, and the power of the mind can liberate us from the template of our conditioning and carve a path to live a life that is truly authentic. My hope is that my guests will inspire and expand you to continue to choose the life that is yours. Today's guest is Sarah Blondin. Sarah is a writer, meditator, visual artist who focuses most on matters of the heart. Sarah is the creator of the Live Awake podcast and the author of the book Heart Minded. She currently resides in British Columbia, Canada, with her husband and her 2 sons. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah.
Hi. Thank you for having me, Alex.
It's so nice to see you.
It's funny because we're trying to pretend we're like really grown up and professional. And we've known each other since what? You were
22, 23, maybe?
And I was what, 24, 25 or something. Oh, no, I don't know. It's a bigger difference than that. But
yeah. And we were... we haven't seen each other and talked in a long time, but we do communicate, and we are, we just did a little catch up before I pressed record. But I wanted to talk first about the genesis of our friendship, because I think it's a big piece of who I am, actually, and a big part of the woman I am. Because there was this time you and I shared that was like this little incubator, actually, I think, for a lot of our dreams. And you certainly inspired me to really commit to my writing practice, and almost like have this quiet sort of spiritual life and connection to nature in a way that hadn't been modeled for me before. And yeah, so let's talk about it. It's 2000 and I don't know, something. Nelson the Seagull Cafe in Vancouver, British Columbia.
We both don't know who we are, but I feel like you were far ahead of me as far as following what I saw or felt was like an actual authentic spiritual direction. So you were likewise such an example for me as far as bravery and stretching and ambition, and just risk, really. And you were so young, and we were both so young, but I'm still so much older than you. But in that stage of my life, there was this, you were really modeling to me that sort of, hey, jump, follow this whisper and go. And I hadn't yet found what I feel I have found now since years of, moving out of the city and having children of my own. You had already started working on that at that age. So it was pretty beautiful to witness, and a really great example for me as well. Yeah, I think we really did help each other in a lot of ways that I've only understood in retrospect, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were a really important friend to me in that time. So I don't know what would have happened had we not met. Yeah.
I don't know. It was meant to be. But I do remember we had known each other for a couple of years, and then I was about to start the studio, the district. And I remember you were over one night and you were like, do you know how to do this? And I was like, no. And you're like, let's call Derek. And we called your husband, and you asked me all these questions.
I don't remember any of this.
And they were great questions, because we were just putting together a business plan. But so much of my life has always been this, I don't know, I love risk, I guess. I love change. I have always followed my heart, and even maybe times before I thought I was ready, and then kind of let everything catch up to me. But we used to go to Galiano Island. There was a few times that we had spent, and, we would just sit and do our journal in the morning. And you introduced me to this book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, which was such a huge part of my life. And there was this connection to nature, into sort of this divine feminine. You were and still are this really vibrant character, with this depth. And I didn't know how to be both. I thought I had to be one or the other. It was I have to be really serious and really deep if people are going to believe me on the spiritual path. But you operated with such lightness too, and laughter. And I certainly laughed very hard in your presence. And I don't know, almost like this, like little girls together, like sleepover
Totally. Like
energy.
I was scared of ghosts. Like how many times did I come into your room being like, Alex, I think there's spirits in the other room.
Yes. And which also makes me think like you are so sensitive and I am so sensitive, and you really saw that in me, and didn't see it as a bad thing. You know, I think my whole life I had been told, and I know similar to you, that, you know, my sensitivity was a weakness and that I had to grow tougher and thicker skin. And I really understand now that my sensitivity and the receptivity to life and the way I can feel and understand my heart is my superpower. And then watching you just bring that message into the world on such a profound global scale, and in the last however many years it's been so cool. So I wanted to have you on the podcast selfishly to just be with you and see you. But I wanted people to know what that journey has been like. So maybe let's start there. You get pregnant and you leave Vancouver.
Yeah. Pregnancy was, you know, touching on the sensitivity thing again. I think pregnancy brings your sensitivity to like a heightened state of what I felt was like a non-negotiable kind of. I had been toying and playing with the idea of moving to the city with Derek out of the city with Derek for years and years and years. And there's nothing like getting pregnant to really force you out, or at least that's what my child chose to do. But yeah, I couldn't walk downtown anymore. I felt the sounds, the smells, everything was just like an abuse to me in many ways. And we just quickly sold our place, and I was like, hey, it's my last dinner, come. And we were like, oh no, it's over. You know, it was just a very abrupt ending to a pretty major chapter in my life where I was living in Vancouver, trying to be an actress, figuring out what and who I was. And then I just catapulted myself into motherhood and what felt like, you know, complete solitude. So that in itself was such a huge transformation that it's really hard to explain because for everyone, you know, you can have such a different experience when you separate yourself from your structures and your comfortable areas. And for me, it was extremely traumatizing in many ways, in that I had no idea how to be with myself in the quiet. I had no idea. And I thought I did, but there's nothing like actual tumbleweed and nothingness to expose how vulnerable you feel ultimately. So it was like walking into the truth of who I was that I had never dared to actually feel or see. So it was almost as if I had to face the human frailty. And then in that sense of frailty and vulnerability, I had to find what was holding me inside of that and what continues to hold me inside of that, which is, you know, the mystery and what I've come to feel as my definition of God and divinity. So moving to the country was like a major excavation of truth for me. But that's all pretty and, you know, nice to say now that I'm out of the job, that experience. But it was frightening. It was isolating. It was revelatory. It was all of the things for a very long time. And I remember at one point after I'd give, you know, so on top of moving to the country, I give birth to a child, you know, alone, essentially, you know, with your husband. So I just remember being in the shower and, you know, really learning to pray, really learning to say what was happening for myself, alone to myself. It was like threading these two worlds together that I hadn't learned yet. And that's when my writing practice became, you know, non-negotiable, because without it, I think I would not have survived it very well, or survived it at all. because you're dismantling who you think you are, and life is showing you who you really are. So it's not really something you're in charge of anymore. It's something doing you and unfolding you, and you just have to find ways to hold on and lean toward a higher conversation with these intense feelings. So that's when the writing practice really became, something I had to do instead of something I kind of did and was cute. It was like, no, this is my only way to live. Thank God I had that. Thank God I had a hand extended to me. And, I just feel so much compassion for people that have no practice when they're thrown into experiences like that, because grace, I don't know how else grace finds people without a conversation being had. Yeah. So my writing practice really became the conversation that I started to have with the divine. And then out of, the grace of the collaborative nature of life, I had a conversation with my deepest, darkest experiences and found, or was given, what I consider to be now my most authentic expression. And I had no way to anticipate or predict that happening. It was completely organic and not of my, I was part of it, but I wasn't. And I acted on my discomfort and talked to my discomfort. But other than that, the way it came out and the way the creative act came, it was like it wove all of these things in my being that I hadn't realized were gifts, which was my connection to poetry and how I saw the world and how I've been studying language for my whole life. And all these mysteries kind of collided into this tapestry that is What You Hear Is Live Awake. And I put it into the world with zero wish for anything other than my own survival and my own connection and my own need to create out of this pain of being a mother and being isolated. And then the world did the rest. And that in itself was extremely, and continues to be something that's really hard for me. Just because it's like, okay, well, use me, but shit, I'm scared of what you're doing and what level you're exposing me. But that is the real dance of creation. Is this like, I give you my everything, do what you wish. And that can be a great gift, or that can be a huge annihilation, or, whatever it is. But it continues to be out of my hands in a way. And I'm perpetually surprised by how it's evolved. Yeah.
And the response has been so huge. And if anyone has listened to Sarah, it's like, even just listening to what you just said, it's like the words cut so deep and there's such a deep resonance to it. And you feel like when you hear your meditations, or you listen to your words, or you read your poetry, it's like the ability for you to articulate your own suffering, your own pain, your own disillusion, your own disconnection, and walk yourself back home within it. And I think I heard you say, like, turn the lights on in your heart again. It's like this language, it's English, but it's this language that's heart language, and it's so moving. And I'm curious, like, when the response started coming in, when people started listening to it and emailing you and sending things, it's one thing to create, it's another thing to put it out there, and then it's another thing to receive. What did that feel like for you when the response started to roll in?
I remember when the response started to roll in, and I went into like a state of what felt like the most intense panic and anxiety that I've ever experienced. But it was a peculiar feeling because there was the polarities of like, wow, yay, I'm excited. But there was also this hell of being so exposed and so vulnerable. And so it was, and again, I think I was having, I don't know, I had moved again to what is now the land we live on. So I was, again, spit into this new environment and having this huge, people were saying crazy things like, this is the voice of God finally here to help us. It was like, not like, It was like, oh, thanks. It was like really loaded. And I was like,
this poem.
yeah. It was like, whoa, okay, I don't really want these titles. So it was a huge cocktail of things. But once I learned, there's just so many layers of needing to regulate inside of expansion and exposure. You just have to keep, the thing that I've been uncomfortable with is how you have to do it so publicly. And I have to continue to fumble and under this like illusion that I need to be perfect at it. So this has been and continues to be a huge learning curve for me that's done out in the open in front of all these people. So it's not easy. My God, it's not. But if anything, it's taught me to just deepen and deepen and deepen and deepen and deepen. And then you just show up wobbling, legs and all, and try to figure it out. I don't know how to trust it yet. And the evolution keeps happening, and I find myself blocking it and saying no. So there's that happening as well as I continue to evolve. Yeah.
Yeah. There's this, I felt it a little in the process of writing a book.
Yeah.
Not even in writing it. It was once the book was out, I was like, no one ever talked to me about this book.
Me too.
I was like, I was so uncomfortable with the book being in the world. It's taken me, only I would say in the last 6 months, am I like proud of it. Not that I was never not proud, but there was something so raw about that experience. What it meant to me, Girl Van, as my life's work. I don't know, crystallizing it in that way. I was like, no one ever addressed this in my presence again.
No, I still don't talk about my book.
Isn't it so interesting? Because that book is having such a deep ripple effect. And I feel similar with my book, but it's like, what is that?
I think what it is for me is that I'm so aware of how, I want to use the word primitive, my contributions will always be in some way. They're always just going to be this pale, kind of insipid version to what I feel inside. Like it's like fumbling around for words for the ineffable. And some part of me is so ashamed of my first effort, and I'm just like, that's not what I actually meant to say. And like so much of it is like, there's the editor, there's the publishing house, there's all these parts that come into play. And then you're left wondering if that was actually what you wanted to say or what you wanted to contribute. It just goes through this incredible process that I find really refines, I think the whole point of it is to refine your alignment with your own self and your own voice, no matter what's happening. But I remember reading a review from a girl, and she said, the one review that you remember on
You're supposed to read anyways.
Yeah, I don't know how I saw it, but I saw it. But she said, I wish I read your first draft before the editors got it.
Oof.
And I was like, but it hit so deep because my first draft was so different than what came out. And not to spite my editor or anything like that, but because of the creative process when you're involving other people. But I was like, you're right. It was a totally different book. Yeah. And I listened to the voices, after I gave my book in, it was like, she's like, this sounds like it's for a really depressed reader. And we don't want that. And I was like, well, that's kind of how I see it. It's kind of like, I see humanity in this way. Yeah. I need to say it. Yeah. But I had to soften the edges a lot, and I had to change a lot of things. So yeah, I'm with you in wanting to hide that part. But I mean, at the same time, as I continue to evolve in my creative process and take risks and not give what I know will make people happy. Yeah. That's what I'm constantly facing day to day. It's like, I can give you a meditation that will not bother you. And I can be the sound that soothes you to sleep, but I can't agree to that in my own being. But in order to actually live that, I have to be willing to encounter people's upset. And I just had that experience. I just let out a new course on Insight Timer, and I used my son's voice, Hugo's voice, because my whole intention was to reconnect people with innocence. And I think that's like so far down under the crust for so many of us that only the voice of the child can bring you there. But it was like received with this outrageousness, outrage in some people, like throwing phones across room comments. Like it was just so revelatory for me. And I'm like, okay, so this is what it looks like to take a creative risk. Because I intuited it. I was like, this is going to hit or not. But I'm going to do it anyway, because if I was to continue to be a creative person that just soothed you, I would be dying inside. So I knew it would challenge people. But there's another thing to receive the comments. And as your reach gets bigger and bigger, you're exposed to more and more of the entire human consciousness. So it's pretty intense. It's not like cute. It's really intense.
Yeah. And I applaud you for that, because I think you have a beautiful voice and the words are so beautiful. And I think
it'd be so cute, right?
It's so cute. And on some level, people are like, do the thing I like that you do and keep going. And, the work of a teacher is to challenge and is to put a mirror up and is to, not just feed you sugar. We need the medicine too. And that's what the words are. They're medicine for people. But and working with companies or partnerships, and I've certainly seen this in my career, of like, just serve them the thing that they want. This is what makes the money. And I did that, and I have done that. And I know the cost of that now so intimately. And it's the reason why I chose to go back to doing everything I wanted to do on my own again. And the payoff of creating one's own work from the place, from the center, versus I know I can be a one-trick pony and give everyone a 20-minute yoga flow on YouTube with Lululemon, but that's not who I am anymore. I have no business teaching like that anymore. I have to evolve.
But you're going to like, at least for me, speaking from my own experience, I'm constantly given that, I'm facing that option, and I'm constantly like, keep on the leading edge of yourself.
Yeah.
But to encounter, like, I sometimes look at some of the biggest leaders of the world and I'm like, I can't believe you're still standing, because I'm like, you get these insults hurled at you, and I'm like, I just want to collapse and withdraw entirely, but then I had this incredible thing happen where I have my Substack in place. So it's this very deliberate act that I made to continue leaning on that edge of like not showing up every day. It's every day. Like, you don't get out of this. But so I put the Substack in place to kind of create that container for me to like, keep pushing, baby. And I think that course went out to 80,000 people in a day, right? So I get this tsunami of comments, some epiphanies, mostly horrible. and at least that's in my mind. And then I still go and sit in front of my laptop, and I still just write. And then I saw so clearly that it's just a stream. And depending on the hour, the minute of the day, it's hateful or kind, and hateful or kind, or loving and kind. And the only thing left is me in a room still trying. So it's like the stream's going, but I'm still trying. And then I felt this glow of like, I'm sad, I'm scared, I'm hurt, but I'm resilient and I'm growing and I don't care. And then I was like, wow, that's it. And that's what I've seen so much with success as well, is you see this growing ego, and you see this part of you inflating, and you're like, wow, because it's beautiful. It's life force. It's vital. It's so beautiful. But then it just like this other hand comes down, and it's like, it's still you alone in a room sitting with truth. And if you go up on this zephyr of ego, it's not the point. So it's always just this very quiet, humble, staying close to God. And that's it. And in order to be successful in the world, you have to find a way to drop down inside, always, 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 because it's never about the success or the global reach. It's always about you just living as close to you as you can every day and never forgetting that. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I needed to hear that.
Well, it's tricky. It's really tricky. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I love that. I mean, we were talking before we started recording. I live in Los Angeles. I'm sort of at the quote unquote epicenter of wellness and meditation and yoga. And, I see a lot of false prophets in this world, and or people feeling like they need to live in a big city to do the thing that they need to do and be in the community and make it. And I love that you are, you're in the country with your family, you and your laptop, creating your work, and not really having to be out in the world in the same way that certainly I thought I had to be, or I think a lot of people that want to have an impact on the world feel like they need to be. Can you speak to that piece of it, of being a teacher, being a meditator, putting your content out, but not necessarily feeling like you need to go travel to every festival or every speaking engagement?
A part of me wanted to say, I continue to do like very few podcasts, and I don't accept many invitations because I see that to be honest, it's because I encounter that inflated sense of self that I don't like her very much. And there's some work there for me to do. But I feel her kind of take over my body. And in some way, she feels very much like a betrayal to my heart and my work. So I have not learned how to walk in the world yet without this part taking over. So my remedy is to just not go. I don't know if that's the right answer yet. Yeah. But so much of, doing podcast interviews and kind of working on this engine of like exposure feels, I could be writing, I could be doing my work, I could be perfecting myself more and more. But then again, the paradox is here because this is medicine. I'm left off feeling fulfilled and full of medicine. So again, I'm just learning everything. But I would say for me, if I don't have solitude and connection to nature, my heart can't be heard. Yeah. So, so much of my transformation and my connection to my authentic voice came from actually being forced to sit in the quiet. And now, people come to my house and they visit and they're like, "Oh, are you going crazy?" You see everybody's issue with silence, with peace, with a forest. How could you just have a forest? And I'm like, what? Like, if I didn't, I did this death practice with Alua Arthur, and she gets you to put your favorite, most important things of your life on these 15 cards, and you basically start throwing the cards away as you're dying. It's a really beautiful process, but my last card was the forest. Even like my husband and kids went before the forest. So for me, it's like, that's where I find God in its most unsullied form and untraumatic, untriggering form. But I see for so many, it's a really big challenge for them to come into this place. But a lot of the poets that I admire the most, like David Whyte, and, his life depends on, and his art depends on going into the solitude. So, I mean, now we don't have to go into the world in big ways. We can do it virtually, but I find my being longing now a little bit to try the human thing, to try the face-to-face thing that you do so well. And you do so fearlessly. You show up with people and in the mud of whatever you encounter and whatever you trigger in people. And that's so admirable, because so much of humanity and so much of my art has come from trying to heal the trauma that I feel around other people. So to go into people and the world takes a certain type of courage that I'm kind of a little more curious about now as I get my feet inside what has happened with my art. And I'm kind of like, well, maybe I try it. So I do little things here and there, but I only accept things that feel like a unicorn.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to be conscious of my impact on the planet. And yeah, so, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah, totally. It's, and being with people as a sensitive human is a lot. Like when I come home from those experiences, I like have a nervous breakdown and then need to like
Right.
hole up for a while and not, and
Right.
just, I can't function. You know, I've gotten so much better at it. I think when, you know, we were in the same city, I was like running around like a wild woman all over town teaching all these classes and retreats. And now I think I've struck a balance that works for me, because I do really love being in the world, but I really love pulling back and having my time. And, you know, my husband and I are moving now and making this big move to go be in nature and go be in the jungle where we feel most called. And that just feels so exciting. And there's a question that's sort of perking up for me around relationship. And I remember the way you explained, Derek, at some point to me, I had, when I met Bill, my husband, I thought, oh, this is what Sarah was talking about. And you said something to the effect of like, people like you and me, because we are very similar, need like this a steady rock. Like you were like, there's nothing I can throw at this man, and he is unwavering. And I know Derek, and I know that to be true. And when I met Bill, I thought, oh, here it is. And we've been together for 7.5 years now. And it is true. There's nothing that I could throw at him or any type of anything that shakes him. He's so firmly rooted. And that changed the direction, the course of my life. It was like this counterpart, this balance, and not saying like everyone needs a partner to complete them. It's not that, but there was something within the balance or the polarity of the energies that changed my life for the better. And so thank you for that, because that was like this seed that was planted.
Like, what am I looking for?
Yeah, I was like, the archetype for me was that in sort of this Buddha-like nature. Yeah, and I'm curious if you can sort of speak to that, or the, as you've even evolved and done your work, like the steadiness of a man like that.
Oh man, I feel so lucky to have found him. I feel like that was like so much destiny involved in that. But mostly because when someone is so much like the earth quality, like the root quality, the tree quality, like they're very, they do exist in the world, right? These people are like, because I'm constantly like, is this real? Like, how could you be this way, really? And it's so real. It's so genuine. He's so deeply rooted in his body in a way that that is so foreign to me. And yet so hypnotizing. And I'm like, you have some sort of medicine and wisdom that my body really needs. And it's in the union of our marriage that, you know, we're teaching each other that. And I have a type of medicine that he really needs. I don't know what that is, but we'll ask him. We'll ask Derek what he feels like I'm giving him. Yeah, I just feel so lucky. But, you know, at the beginning, at the onset of, you know, deciding to marry him, you know, a part of me was like, well, I need the highly emotional, you know, expressive love. I need that too. And it was like, well, he's not that. He's the stoic in the corner that can hold me. But so I was, you know, you can get kind of caught up in this. Well, what, he doesn't have this now, or he has, you know. But as our relationship has grown, he's taught me so much. He's made it so safe for me to be all of myself. And I don't think I've ever had a human in my life that's done that well. My parents, definitely not. So it's so beautiful to say, here is me. And he just gently, you know, well, you know, I just was going through it the other day. Christmas was next level this year with family. And I'm lying on the bed and I'm like, I feel like I'm in a pressure cooker and I can't get out. And I'm like, and I have so many feelings in my body. And he just like, you know, pushes my hair back and massages my head and just so deeply says, let go. And that's it. And it's not complicated. It's not, it's not, I'm not going to a sermon. He's just so rooted in let go. And I'm so rooted in feel and be expressive. So we both need each other in so many ways. But then I was like, said to him, I'm like, I just want you to be a little more like, expressive and like help your kids more openly. And he's like, and I just want you to be a little more grounded and quiet. And he was like, don't ask me to be you and I won't ask you to be me. And I was like, heard, thank you.
Thank you.
But
yeah.
Probably just need one of us.
Yeah.
You're right.
This sounds familiar. It's the simplicity too. And I think that's often what I love and appreciate and have so much reverence for the masculine, is that it in its linearness, sometimes it is the knife that just cuts through, and it's like, oh, okay, I've been spinning in circles.
And that's what you see. And that's what you see in their company. And I love that. But it's not like one of them is right or wrong. They're just like so perfectly designed to accompany one another.
Yeah. And you're raising boys, two beautiful boys. What is the experience of being a boy mom, and as they develop and come into themselves, what is it like?
I don't know what it's like to be a girl mom, but I've loved boys my whole life. Like,
I know. No.
I love boys physically, and I love boys. When I was younger, I gravitated to boyfriends, and I wasn't a girl's girl in any way. I dressed as a boy for most of my life. My husband jokes, as I've gotten older, he's like, "You're just dressing more and more like an elegant old man," and I was like. Yeah, so I think I love the masculine with the feminine, though. Like, I don't know. So I love that I got boys, actually. And I sometimes wish that I had a third, just to be surrounded by that boy energy. And I think the reason I really love the boy energy is because what I'm learning about boy energy is they're so sensitive. And it makes like a huge amount of compassion for toxic masculinity and just how we've ended up this way. And to be able to nurse these lives in a way that doesn't have that, even though they pick it up at school, even though they come home and they're like, I shouldn't cry and blah, all this stuff that I'm like horrified by. I'm like, where's it coming in? How's it coming in? Where's it? I can't patch the hole. I can't patch the hole from these universally adopted, paradigms around men and boys. And I just, I love bringing them into their hearts. They're already so there, but I love knowing that I may be doing something to help change the next generation, even if just a drop in the bucket. But it's pretty revealing to see. And I have nieces and I see them like doing this judgmental catty thing to their friends and like emotionally reactive. And then the boys learning this, like, and I'm like, whoa, it's still here. It's still here. It's in every movie, every book, every show. So we got big jobs.
Yeah. It's interesting this year at Girlvana because I took a little hiatus. And then I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to relate to Gen Z, to teen girls. Like, I'm old now. Who wants to hear what I have to say? And I was just so struck by, it's all the same, this universal experience of girlhood or boyhood. And yeah, the world is certainly changing. I mean, we didn't look at the world in that same sort of, with climate change and political, these kids are so hyper political and are so on, that just have so much information, but there is this universal experience of conditioning of what it means to be a girl or a woman in the world that still needs to be sort of deprogrammed and combed through. And, the inheriting of the low self-esteem and the not enoughness. And I see it in our boys too, the way that they are not allowed to feel certain things. Or even with my husband, he's in a men's group here in LA, which is so beautiful for men to be together and just be in conversation, because with women we can go on a hike or do a thing and it's like 2 hours of
We're
therapy.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And men don't have that same opportunity. And I used to think, well, it's because they don't want it, but it's not. I see a deep desire in men and boys to connect actually, in the same way. We just haven't provided enough spaces for them to do that.
Yeah. Well, and they're like, you go first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, who's going to go first? And they're both like, I don't know. Like,
yeah.
I cry sometimes. And the guy's like, yeah, me too. Like, it's a game of chicken, with men, which I find so fascinating. I mean, I don't operate in that way in any way, but yeah, I mean, this work will always be here. And like, I don't know, we're always just going to be looking back, seeing again, this word primitive. But it's really like incredible work, and incredibly painful work as well, because I have to get to the place where and every parent has got to get to this place where they said, like, you got to do you. And no matter what I say, you'll still have to live through this and come out the other side, hopefully. So it's a real big, I feel like it's painful a lot of the time because they can't even identify it. It's like looking at these little beings, just so sponges, so susceptible to everything. And you try and say, like, look over here. And they're like, I can't. And you're like, damn it. Like, I can give you easy buttons for all of this. And they're like, I have to live, Mom. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. And then what does the let go look like as a parent, right? I just can't imagine the level of surrender. Yeah.
Well, because your body can't let go. Yeah. So, your cells are so intertwined with theirs. It's just a real big, painful thing. But
yeah. How does, how do the boys impact your work right now? Like the thing, like I'm sure it's everything, but the things you write about, or the why.
Well, like the birth of my first son was the birth of my authentic boys. It wasn't like, they're so interconnected. It's insanity. Like if I would have not become a mother, I don't know what would have happened. Yeah. I don't think it would be anywhere near to as potent as it is. Because, there's very few experiences in life that are like, hey, you have to live like this close to life. Like, and that's giving birth. And that's, those are like, you go through a portal where you're like, I'm not in control at all. And I have to just hunker down and breathe and let go and let go and let go. And that's, like, that's just like life. So having that experience was like what birthed everything for me. But I feel this grasping because their innocence is where the real magic has been for me, is just to witness the level of purity we come in with, the level of availability we have, the level of love we have access to, has been so illuminating. I've been like, wow, it is so miraculous. And I have this grasping, like, so now they're moving into like, preteen baloney. And I'm like, I keep checking Hugo's little arm dimples, like, so if he still has the fat in his elbow. And I'm like, is it gone? Oh no. Because you watch it leaving, and that's where the grief really, really hits. And that's what I think I touched in for a lot of people with this course, was like, that's the original wound. That's where we left in the home we were always trying to get back to. And that's where we have been so hurt. And I watch them, I think about every parent when most children are born. My wish for most children is that most all parents kind of huddled around these little flames, saying like, if I died for this, I know I'd be dying for truth. This is the truth. This is your purity. Your essence is the magnet of all life. It's what makes life possible. It's what these little kids that we try and protect come in with. And to watch it being harmed, and to watch it changing under the lens of whatever they have to go through, is a hugely tender and ultimately bringing me closer and closer to understanding life, and that it's a process that we have to go through. But now my work is really focused on getting us back there, because as I get older, I'm seeing that that is actually what happens if you live really close to your heart, is you actually start to erode a lot of those things again. And you get to see who you were to begin with as a gift, actually. Because when you're little, you're unconscious of it. And then you go through this pile on. And if you're lucky, you get to chip some of that off again and feel your original essence again. So, I mean, just watching them has brought me all the way back to that place and inspired pretty much everything I do. My kids are in everything. Yeah.
So you would highly recommend being a mother? Every time I talk to Sarah, she's like, "Are you pregnant? Are you having a baby?"
Like, hey, is there a baby in there? I mean, no pressure, obviously. No, I think it's amazing. I think you can use it.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't use their experiences. And what I mean by that is I think they don't. They're like, oh, can't wait till it's over. Or like, I have a lot of moms that are like, oh, I can't wait till they're out, and I'm like, what? Yeah. Oh my God. Why are you not living close to this?
Yeah, the narrative around motherhood has been really interesting because I'm such an observer, and I've been watching since I have felt ready, looking for years at examples that inspire me around motherhood. And I have to say there's not so many, mostly because I see this this sort of break in relationship and deep resentment with their partner, or this really deep aloneness, and sort of what you're speaking to, you were able to alchemize it and create from it. But I see a lot of women sort of get stuck in this place and sort of give up this old identity, but be still attached to it. And I think I resonated with that because I have felt so driven in my life and my career. And I sort of saw women, you give it up or you sacrifice. And there's not enough women speaking about what you're speaking to, is then the new birth. You have been birthed now along with this child and this next sort of phase. I don't hear enough what people speaking to how the glory of that and how profound.
That it just takes so much work to find that. And I think that's a lot of work. Intimacy is the hardest thing. Nobody knows. A lot of people struggle. They don't know what intimacy means. They don't know what it means to feel yourself falling apart and reaching for something else. It's like, again, that's touching on what you said about the language. It's like groping in the dark for words for something you can't understand. So most of us just disassociate instead and just wish for it to be over, because it pushes on so many places. And that's what, that's the real challenge of motherhood, is like, I'm not going to say have a kid, it's awesome, because I went through hell, but I used every single hell. And what I mean by used is I used every single feeling of hell, and I went to the very bottom of it without, no, I'm not. I'm going to sit down with this and I am going to talk with it. And it's relentless work. So the relentless nature of things is what you're signing up for in motherhood. And you can use it as a spiritual practice to keep finding. Oh man, now that I think of the beginning, how much rage, how much stuff you have to go through. All your feelings you're feeling now, like my ambition, I struggle with it all the time. Like, it's just assumed I take care of the kids if they're home from school. It's not Derek, and I'm the breadwinner at this point. So it's kind of like, wow, all these things are, the rage of a million sons and women.
Yeah.
But I don't, that's just like knee-jerk shit.
Can we talk about rage for a moment? Because let's talk about rage. I walked through some deep, deep rage in the spring around just sort of actually grappling with the way I felt about how I'd been treated at a certain job. And then it was like compounded when I really met it. It was like, oh, it's actually patriarchy. It's the oppression of women. It's the oppression of all women. And I kind of got to this root of this deep rage. And I'm the keeper of many, many stories, right, through the work that I do, and particularly with young women, horrific stories, and as well as women. And I have a lot of practices in my life that allow me to process and move through them. A lot of teachers and healers in nature and dance and movement. And but still, it was like this hot, hot rage within me. And it was showing up in my relationship and showing up with Bill, where I was like, don't touch me, like, get away from me.
You're the devil.
Yeah. And this poor man was like, but I don't know if you're mad at me. And I'm like,
me all the time. He's like, am I associated with this? And I'm like, he's like, it feels like it. I'm like, wow, you're kind of part of it.
And grappling with that and trying to discern, like, I'm not mad at you, but I'm mad at something. And it's lighting me on fire. And it was really powerful for our relationship in the way that he was so patient and sort of allowed me to walk through this and sort of be like, what do you need today, tonight? You know, do you need a hug? Do you want no touch? You know, and I realized how angry I was. And I don't think, I do think it was the first time in my life where I really allowed myself to be angry, angry for my own experience, but angry for all of the young women's experiences, and really processing it. And it's been beautiful. And I feel way less angry now, which is nice, but the sacred rage of women. And then I realized how many women in my life had never encountered their rage, not even touched skim the surface of what it felt like to scream out, you know. And I feel really grateful to know it now. And I know, and I hear it a lot for women and new mothers, that level of rage. What do we do with that rage? What did you do with that rage?
Well, because the rage has been a huge part of my existence. And I mean, before I tempered any version of that rage, it was kind of how I operated. It was very like spiteful, ragey, condemning, righteous. And then giving birth to a child, which is the most humbling of experiences, is you then see the sea of rage in your body that you did not know was there. And yeah, it's ancient rage, but the saddest part is it gets put on your angel baby. So that's the most painful part about motherhood, is there's some women I've met that I truly believe are free of that, and they are just this nurturing earth. I really do think I've met a few women like that, and I admire them. But that has not been my experience. My children and marriage has triggered, the entire dialogue of women's history, you know? So what have I done with that rage? I've expressed it very poorly. I have failed in not having it touch everyone around me, helpless people. And the biggest thing I'm learning is I don't think it will ever go away. But just like my, constant process with life and pain and suffering will never go away. It has to be, you have to have a conversation with it independent of others, and not have it go out of you onto other people. However, that being said, I can't deny that, Derek, as conscientious as he is still subscribing to, woman's work, there's like, I'm sure Bill too. So what we actually need from one another is what, Bill is agreeing to evolve with your rage. And in that, we're actually raising the consciousness of one another, and we're pulling the men out of the paradigm that they're kind of unconsciously doing. And we're all just saying, we're going to build a new world together. And in order for us to build that world together, you have to be able to feel my rage. And luckily, I've been blessed with a husband that can. So it has to be inside job, obviously. And just so much forgiveness for yourself as you learn to express it in healthy ways, not unhealthy ways. Because I feel like rage comes out very unhealthy.
Yeah.
It hurts a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. I the last retreat I led was in Panama. I had 29 women there, and I was leading an active breathwork session. And towards the end of it, active breathwork basically is a way to kind of quell the ego center and kind of bring you deeper into your body, where you're in a place of non-verbally processing a lot of emotions. So a lot comes up, and in particular for women. And I will give space for a scream. And usually the scream in different capacities is like everyone does a scream and or a sigh. And this was like, earth shaking, blood curdling, for minutes upon minutes upon minutes. And then it turned into sort of the permission. I don't know who yelled it first, but some woman went, "Fuck you." And then it was like laughter and yelling and screaming until people were done. It was like, a temper tantrum until the softening came. And it was so magic. And like people's voices were raw after, and it was like, wow, I needed that. And it was years and years and years of this build up. And so for me, when I can feel the rage is happening, it's like even something as simple as like stomping my feet or hitting a pillow, or when I lead the teen retreats, we take them to the ocean and they get to yell and like punch the water and just have ways to move it through the system. Because when it gets caught in the body, it just explodes in ways that, harm others and harm the,
It's really beautiful that you're creating the container for that, because, we're not given that. We often don't know it's even there until it gets touched by, pretty pivotal experiences like motherhood and being married. And, it's just so old. And it's so painful that you do need to express it on your own time, and it needs to be expressed and it needs to be seen. But again, we see the same result is that then you have to step into the self. And I think what a lot of the rage is about is, if I think back to a time where I was abused by a man, very inappropriately, what was actually happening was the rage is in myself for myself not being able to find my throat and my voice. The rage is at me. It's not at them. I mean, they're doing wrong, but we see what ends at the end of the day. We go through the rage, we kick and stream. At the end of the day, it's like, are you speaking? And are you speaking from a place that is very clear? Not like, you should feel me. It's feel me. This is wrong. It's so grounded. So that would be the test of how your rage is being. Are we using the rage not just to express it poorly, or whatever? Are we actually using it when the times come to be as clear as we can? And my answer is no, I'm not.
Yeah.
And I still struggle to, big time.
Yeah. Yeah, I resonate with that. It's like, I think what was really helpful in that time was figuring out my no. So much of the rage came from how much betrayal I was placing upon myself, and the times I wasn't able to communicate. And like you said, find your voice, find your throat, get it out. And that whole it was a few months, this period of walking through that. And I have so much clarity now. And the way I'm able to express within my own relationship, that's been a bit easier because it's a safer space. Yeah, it's a bit tougher out in the world,
Yeah.
Or with family, parents.
With family. So with family, that was my big, kicker this Christmas was like, Derek's family is just like the antithesis of me, which is beautiful. Thank you for the teachers. But I couldn't find my no without the charge of like 10,000 suns in my like emotional, my body stores the history. So to find actually the clearest stream is the work, right? And like, it is so easy with our husbands because we're so blessed to have these very generous beings in our lives. But I at one point said to Derek, I'm like, you have to stand up for me. And he was like, what? Like, he's like, so you're telling me I have to like, not only like be having conversations with my own family, but like be very aware of like maybe what you're going through and what people are saying to you because you can't find your own. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's a ridiculous request, isn't it? But it's like I needed someone to do it for me. And that's what I think women, you know, the real growth for women will be, regardless of all this oppression. We are refining our emotions and actually stepping into the truth and this firmness. Like, you listen to Maya Angelou and you hear what a lifetime of just like continued effort and devotion to her truest sound actually became this impenetrable stone that you can't argue with. It's just like, wow. So that's what we're striving for. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Will I get there? I don't know. I'm trying, but it's coming out so badly. Yeah. And that's where, you know, but I came home from my, you know, trying my best this Christmas to actually speak instead of let people abuse my sensitivity and make fun of me. That's been my theme, right? I tried to use my voice several times, but I came home and the one person in the world that I feel like can understand me more than anyone is my dad. And he just went, this is grief. This is grief. Welcome grief, lay down grief. And I was just like, wow, I haven't seen it that way. But he just took it from the narrative into grief. You know, just grieve. The pain you felt your whole life for being who you are. And the stonings, continued stonings. It's grief. And there's, I must befriend this grief, because if I'm going to continue to prevail against all odds, I have to know how to grieve this human ignorance in myself and in others. It's not them, it's both of us. You know, we're complicit with one another. I heard this beautiful line the other day: if you're laughing, you're in agreement. And that's what I do so often with people, you know, oh, you're so sensitive, or oh God, you need medication, or oh God, bleh, bleh. Like, it's awful what's happened. But what do? I laugh. Yeah. I'm in agreement. So, and then the rage comes and it's old and crusted and so enormous, but it's really because I'm needing to say, as calmly as I'm speaking to you now, raise the consciousness with me, please. I don't agree to be in this dialogue with you. And that is a terrifying step to take. I don't know why that's so terrifying, but it's like, wow, I'm just so humbled every time I leave a family gathering, because I'm like, why was that so hard? And why did I ask my husband to do it for me? What is that? Yeah. What are we afraid of?
Yeah, I so relate to all of that. And I feel it both in my own in-laws too. And I think what feels most at stake for me is approval, or is that their love will be taken away if I don't agree.
Am I good enough now?
Yeah, am I good enough now? And
do you understand me now?
Yeah.
No pleading.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have this memory when I was a little girl, and it comes up all the time. It's like this really root trauma for me when I was I was 4 and I was in junior kindergarten in Collingwood, Ontario, and it was quiet time, and the teacher said, shh. And the little girl beside me wanted to talk to me, and I looked at her and I said, shh, it's quiet time. And then the teacher said, Alexandra, no talking. And I was like, I sobbed. For the teacher's aide had to take me out, walk me down the hall on her hip. My mom had to come get me. I had to leave school. I was so, just sobbing, uncontrollable. And it comes up just that moment of this injustice, as I was trying to get it right.
I wasn't understood.
I wasn't understood. Yeah. And this sensitivity that is so alive in me, and I see it so much in the work that I do with girls is then we try to hide it or pretend, or what do? We laugh and we make someone else feel more comfortable. We put our own vulnerability on the line so that someone feels better about
So
themselves.
who's the rage at?
Yeah. It's ourselves, of course.
Yeah.
I betrayed myself.
This is grief. This is grief.
Yeah. And the grief piece of it. And so I've worked that memory many times where it is grief, just that grieving of that little misunderstood one. And ultimately coming to this place of grace and gratitude for all that she can feel. I'm so grateful for that. And there's been a lot of reclamation of her over the last couple of years. And it's so silly, but even moving to the United States, I had to even layer up a few more layers of this. And so the sort of disarming and peeling back the layers again to the sensitive one, and to not only feel her, but to stand up for her.
Yeah. Well, to bring her into the room.
Yeah.
She is who I end up as. She is who I came in as. I heard this beautiful line, you're not meeting me when you meet me, you're meeting my bodyguard. And I'm like, but for me to show up who I am, I have to stop laughing. I have to stop being complicit. I have to stop living to please and be good. And it's not that you don't become good, but we're afraid of our power. We're so afraid of our power. And we're afraid of saying it for fear of losing the pack. My girlfriend was going through something. I'm like, you're just getting kicked out of the pack. It's like just animal instinct, but you're going to be good. You're good. You're good. It's not like, but that's the feeling we're feeling. So there's like so much, and that's what Derek's really been good at showing me. He's like, there's instinct.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I am so afraid to die. Like I've been really dealing with death as I turn 40. I'm like, I am terrified. Can you believe we're just walking around? Nobody's really talking about this. But one day I say goodbye to everyone. Like, are you kidding? Like, and I also have to watch my body fail. Like that sucks. And I've been terrified. And like, my husband's just like, because I'm like, I'll get rid of this fear. I'm going to look at it so hard that I won't feel the fear. That's always been my motto, right? And he's like, there's an instinct in your body that will always be there. And that is to survive and live.
Yeah.
So make friends with these polarities. They're not going anywhere. And it was such a revelation for me to be like, right, like twin streams are going alongside one another. Like I have God in my fear of death. I have nature and the forest and whatever that's speaking to me in my falling apart. But I'm not going to get rid of this part of me. I'm not going to get rid of the child who wants to belong. I'm not going to get rid of my child heart's longing to just connect in love and be in union with love. I'm not going to get rid of her. She's always going to be there, and she's always going to be juxtaposed seemingly to the world. So really the mastery of it all is like two streams are beside each other. And I have one foot in both, and I'm never going to get out of this story. This is it. So, when I had pain, I had chronic pain I have a lot of chronic pain, but that's always my body being like, hey, stay here. And I'm like, did you have to be such a fierce teacher? But it helps me stay here. And when I had the chronic pain, I just remember every day my practice was around getting rid of it.
Yeah.
With the intention of getting rid of this thing. And then one day it said, imagine this was here for every day of the rest of your life. How do you treat it now? It's not going anywhere. How do you treat it? And I was like, fuck you. This better go somewhere. But then it was like, okay. The secret was, if I can show up, it shows up, and I can treat it kindly and with love, then I've won.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I am speaking a lot of things that I don't know yet in a embodied way. I understand it conceptually, but these are the big pieces.
Yeah. Yeah. Rumi says the cure to the pain is the pain. And I think about that, especially when it comes to anything physical. Like if I get sick, I'm like, I know all these things, and then I get a head cold and I'm like,
oh my God.
Yeah, it's devastating. And that's the real work, is to stay inside and stay in the body.
Oh God, just
crawl
stay in the
out.
body. God, but the body for me has been like just this the reason I'm so afraid of it is because it's at like a level 100 of everything that goes on for me. So to confront the body is like, and I was teaching the other day people to focus on their heart breathing, and people were like, I can't, I'm having heart palpitations, I'm freaking out. And I was like, see how scared we are? Yeah. So, and I understand that. I really do. My body is the truth teller. It's the tuning fork, and it like contains the multitudes of me. And it's terrifying to encounter her sometimes, especially when she's in distress. But like, where the hell am I going? Like, it's the only home I have. Like, I have to be here in this. So, but yeah, so that's my real edge this year is I've been invited to do some pretty big things, and I'm choosing things that I would like to do. But I know that as I follow my soul, I know I'm going to meet all of these parts now, and she's just going to be on fire. But I'm going to have to walk with her and find ways to walk with her and ever new ways to include her in this experience. And it's just really not easy work. And I bow to everyone trying to see their multitudes and
I can't
to grieve.
Yeah, I can't wait to witness and see. Maybe I'll see you in real life. Maybe this year. I don't know.
Oh my God, we'll be like little hermits, like with like invisibility cloaks. Like,
I wish. I know. If I could just,
we can only show up sometimes when we're fully resourced. But you have a lot to teach me about being with people.
Yeah, I love being with people. I really do. It reminds me.
So good at it.
Yeah. You're so good at it too. But I know it's
one part good, one part not.
Yeah.
But the real insecurity for me is, and I wonder how you feel about this, is like, how do you show up trusting you're worth your salt?
Yeah.
You know, like that's what comes up for me is like, if I show up to 30 women or a company that brings me somewhere, like, how do I know I'm going to give you? And how did you even begin to trust?
It's interesting. My teacher said something to me in the fall when I came back from Panama, and I did not give myself enough rest, and I sort of hit the ground running with a bunch of things, and I
called, like, go.
Yeah,
but I was like, see, that's that part. It's like, and you're like,
and I called her, and I was like, I don't know, I just am sad, and it's a lot, and I don't know if I can do this, and she was like, if you want to be a teacher, you go first, and if you cannot find the love and grace for yourself and take care of yourself, give all those women their money back. Because I was like,
they're like,
yeah. She was like, if everything you go email them right now and say, oh, hey, so much fun that we had together, but I actually am self-loathing and hating myself currently and can't slow down enough to resource myself and give myself the love that I so desperately need. I'm a fraud. She's like, send that email. Like, she's joking, but there's a truth in it of like, be it. And I love giving my heart away. I'm like, here you go. And the hardest work for me is to bring it back to myself. But she's like, if this is what you want for these women, and I do, it's urgent. I urgently want women to love themselves. I urgently want that. And I need to want it at the same rate I give it. That is it's a new paradigm shift for me. I mean, I've always understood it intellectually. You put your gas, or not your gas mask. What was it called? Your mask. Not the gas mask. Whatever. We all know fill your gas tank, whatever. First, but to really embody it and really care for myself as exquisitely as I care for others continues to be that. But she needed to put it in words that slapped me in the face to really understand it. She was like, go tell those women you're a fraud. I was like, no, I don't want that. I want to.
It snaps you out of the thing too that you're going.
I'm running all these dumb stories, and I've always been like this.
Dramatic.
Yeah. She's like, shut the fuck up, and just go to sleep. Go to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, it's not so hard. It's like I'm often like a child having a tantrum. It's like I'm hungry, and I need all the stimuli. I need no noise and just to go to sleep. It's really.
I need a bath.
I need a hot bath. Yeah.
Well, I remember David White talking about that because do you know David White? He's an incredible poet. But okay,
I'm like, do you know him personally?
No, but I'm going to meet him.
I knew it.
Oh my God, I'm meeting him in a few weeks. Okay. So, but he talks about when he first started doing retreats, and he says at the end of the retreat, I would lock the door and go into complete darkness for 7 days. And I was like, oh, you too. But he's like, now he's 70 now. And he's like, now I leave my retreats more full than when I started. So I'm like, okay,
there's hope for us.
The process. Well, and it's just the process. Like it's finding, because all that stuff, Ali Maz crashing, Sarah crashing, is like, those are just like old things that we're like, no. And like, and then we'll find it. And she won't be there anymore. Wow.
Totally. I know that that's sort of this metamorphosis that's coming for me, where I don't do the big crash, but part of that is believing in myself. I think the crash comes from that it's done, the party's over, and I go, well, was that enough? And was that, that's the voice that then creates the crash when I second guess it, versus walking out of there in full resolution of I did the thing, I was in service. I think that's part of where the crash happens for me. Yeah.
I don't trust myself yet.
But yeah, we'll get there.
Only way is through.
That's true. Okay, now we're like well over the time I said that I was going to keep you, but I wanted to ask one last question, and it's a question that I ask all of my guests, and it is the ineffable and the hardest thing to describe, but I want to hear your own interpretation of God.
Ooh.
Yeah, or divine or source or however you call it.
So just to preface my relationship with God, I was raised really religious, or in a religious household. They weren't like heavy-handed, like evangelists or anything like that. But the notion of God was always in my life. I went to Catholic school. And then at age 16, my parents gave me the choice, do you want to go to church anymore? And I said, no, this has never made sense to me. It's never resonated. And from 16 onward, I couldn't use the word God. I couldn't find the way to say the word. I just couldn't. I was like, no, I won't be using that word ever. And as I've hit this age, I want to say God all the time. But it's because I have developed a relationship with the God of my own understanding. I have figured out what God means to me without the church, without indoctrination, without anybody else's opinion. And it is totally ineffable, and it's really hard to name. But for me, I did not give myself life. I can't choose breath. I can't choose heart. I'm here for no other reason than something has been given to me second by second, breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat. And I realize that the closer that I can live to those parts of myself, the more I feel a very conscious presence of love is just not even compared to what I feel. It's like such a small word, but it is. I'm not alone in this, and I'm not abandoned in this, and nor could I ever be. And when I've encountered, my biggest edges, like I've been peeling back the layers of like, what is my fear of death? Because I'm not really afraid of dying. But when I peel back and back and back, and I go to the very bottom of it, it's that I die and nothing's there. And that I'm actually alone in this, and that I have been abandoned. And that all these stories and spiritual work that I'm doing is just to buffer and protect me from that truth that I'm actually alone in this. And that's my fear in meeting death, is that this whole life has been a lie to make me feel safe here. But what I've found when I've really gone into that aloneness and that abandonment, I'm like, I am the only one here. And then all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, it's me. Mm-hmm. I'm God. I'm God, watching God, holding God, being God. And I am who I'm going to meet in the end. Nothing else. And can that be enough? Am I enough? So God is us, and God is me, and finding a way to see that that is enough. Even on your last breath, that you are the only one you meet. It's a very tender thing for me, because I think that's what God actually is. It's me, it's you. And that's who we meet in the end, not someone else. And that's been the biggest thing for me, is every time I'm feeling alone in this, it's like, whoa, me. So that's my understanding of God. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to say words after that. So goodbye. So good talking to you. Yeah, that's so it's so beautiful. Thank you for articulating the ineffable and bringing this heart language to me selfishly as your friend. It's just like such a medicine, but to the world, because it's making a huge dent and an impact. And at the end of the day, it is just you and you. That's all we got.
Me and me, talking to me. How close can you live to you? And how true can you live to that you?
Yeah. That's all there is.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
That's nothing else. I go to every stage and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And we can try so hard and look in every other direction.
Well, and just think that that's the track. It's not the track. No. That's why I kind of, reduce my engagement with that track. Yeah. But we'll see what next time we talk. Yeah. Who will we be?
I don't know. Next? Well, I love who we are now, and I loved who we were back then, and it's just so beautiful.
Exactly. It's beautiful.
It's so beautiful to witness you on this journey, and it's a reflection for me. It's really cool, and I think once we log off, it'll continue to sort of do its work on me about how profound my love for you is, and how grateful I am for you to have shown me the way in so many ways.
You too, my brave, fearless leader. Thank you for everything, Alex.
Thank you, Sarah. I love you.
Love you too. Allie Mad Show.